Before we get started, I have a couple of Ypc announcements for everyone here. For all of our members, thank you again for showing up and continuing to support our organization and the events that we host. Some upcoming things we have for you. On November 3rd, we are partnering with the New Memphis Institute for their face-to-face event, which will be discussing potential career path options for a bunch of college students. Sometime in mid-November, we'll be having a professional development workshop. The final details for that are still being worked out, and so be on the lookout for more information in the near future. We are also currently accepting applications for new board members. If you have an interest in shaping the future of Ypc, you can find links to that in the most recent Ypc newsletter. We'd love to have you on board, especially if you have an interest in either marketing or membership. Those of you who have joined us today who are not members, at least not yet, we welcome you and invite you to consider joining our application, our organization. An application can be found on the Memphis Chamber's website, and membership gives you access to all of our exclusive events like the ones I just mentioned. It's a great way to get plugged in, get to know more organizations and things that are happening around Memphis, as well as meet some of the people who are making it happen. Link was just dropped in the chat. Would love to have you come join us full time. We'll now move on into the meat and bones of our webinar. The subject today is how Memphis attracts tech, talent, and travel, and we'll have 3 speakers who will be speaking on all of those specific subjects. How this is going to work is I'm going to first read all of their bios so you can know who exactly we'll be hearing from today. Each panelist will have 15 minutes to answer a couple of prepared questions, and then we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. If you have anything specific you'd like to ask the panelists, please don't be shy. Drop your question in the chat. If I like your questions more than the questions we already have prepared, I may ask it to them during the regular session. So please let us know what you'd like to hear from our panelists. Moving on ahead, our first panelist we'll be hearing from today will be Kevin Adams. Kevin is the managing partner of Big River Partners, LLC. They're the developer entity for the project known as The Walk. Kevin was originally involved with the development of the Raymond James Building and the Memphis Professional Building. He was responsible for the completion of One Memphis Place after the economic downturn in the mid-1980s and has been an owner in the past of One Commerce Square, Brinkley Plaza, and One Memphis Place in downtown Memphis. Kevin also started the Memphis CBRE office more than 32 years ago and acted as the CEO and chairman, growing the business from just 4 employees in only Memphis to 120 employees covering West Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Outside of that, he also has business ventures around the country, including H2O Properties, a brokerage company in Northern Florida, Bluff City Realty, a residential brokerage company in Memphis, Tennessee, and the Realty Advisors of Sun Valley, a management and brokerage firm in Haley, Idaho. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Following Kevin will be Milton Howery, aka Milton Memphis, who is a writer, creative, tourism, and entertainment professional. He spent the last 15 years working in the tourism and entertainment industry. He is currently the director of public relations for Memphis Tourism and is responsible for generating domestic and international media exposure for Memphis. Most recently, Milton confirmed Memphis placement in Time magazine as one of the world's greatest places for 2021. Milton is also the founder of Milton Memphis Entertainment, known for creating popular events like the Link Up Memphis. He also serves as the president for the Public Relations Society of America, Memphis chapter, and also serves on the executive committee for Public Relations Society of America, Travel and Tourism section. In 2017, Milton received the Top 40 Under 40 Urban Elite Professionals Award, and in 2019 received the same honor from the Memphis Business Journal. Most importantly, Milton is a proud and esteemed member of Ypc. Glad to have one of our own on the panel. Milton, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our third and final speaker will be Elizabeth Cawein, who is a music advocate and strategist. She's an adjunct professor of music urbanism at Rhodes College and a faculty advisor to the Curb Institute for Music. She also leads brand experience work for Memphis Brand Initiative, helping to elevate contemporary narratives for the city of Memphis. In 2015, she was honored by the British Council at its inaugural Education UK Alumni Awards, celebrating outstanding US alumni of British institutions. Elizabeth has moderated panels and presented showcases at Vocal Lines International, South by Southwest, Americana Fest, and Music Cities Convention. She also serves as an advisor on the Recording Academy Memphis chapter board. Elizabeth is dedicated to the belief that smart cities are music cities, and her TED Talk on that subject has over 1 million views. She founded Signal Flow Public Relations, a boutique media firm dedicated to serving the Memphis music industry. She also launched a not-for-profit initiative called Music Export Memphis, which leverages public and private support to function as an export office for Memphis music, creating opportunities for musicians and driving economic development through music and culture. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Moving right along, we will now talk with our first panelist, Kevin Adams. Kevin, thanks again for joining us. It's your turn in the hot seat. All right. So many of us became aware of your most recent project, The Walk, under its original name of Union Row. In this day and age, where especially our friends in Nashville are building small apartment buildings with luxurious private amenities, you instead decide to, with the name change, highlight walkable communities as a central feature of your development. Can you walk us behind the reasoning and motivation for that change?
Sure. Well, first of all, the name originally Union Row was just a code name while I was trying to assemble all this dirt. It really needed to go through a process of some marketing folks and just, understanding Memphis and how we're built and what we're trying to do. And as you all know, Memphis starts at the river and it pulls back from there. And this particular site sits right in the center of so many things that we have, from the Riverside Park to the medical center. So it truly is a hub area that connects from St. Jude to South City to the river to the medical center. And we're such a walkable downtown, we wanted to make it even more walkable. And it just seemed like the natural name to be called The Walk on Union. So.
Excellent. So one of the ambitions you have for this project is specifically being a smart city within a city. Can you tell us what a smart city is and why that was an intentional design choice for the development?
Sure. First of all, the walk is it's a natural nexus of a live, work, and play that activates the human pathways between our business corridor, our stadiums, and our historic treasures that we have of the city, and our globally renowned healthcare centers, as we know. And what we realized very quickly is that a smart city is going to be the attractor of businesses to come. And as thank goodness for the announcement of Ford as an example. There's a lot of alliances that will be formed that technology is very important. So this project is going to be unprecedented from the standpoint of the data-rich test bed for the applications of technology and connectivity to the civic and the corporate innovations. Upon the completion of the walk, we think it will be a national benchmark for the possibilities of smart city designs. We're studying a lot of different cities in that regard. And in that capacity, we hope to attract the best and the brightest minds in the fields for collaborations and residencies and conferences and partnerships that will, simplify or simply just won't exist anywhere else. In the center of all this will be an innovation hub, an office building that will be different from anything that we have in Memphis of how it will connect people. So, this is going to be not just startups. We will have a fund that we will start ourselves, and a lot of it will be from Opportunity Zone investors that are coming into the project, that we will be able to fund new innovation companies that want to open. We're going to focus a lot on the minorities of them coming into the technology industries as well, but there will be support from the big corporate providers as well. So it will make it easier and more affordable. A lot of communal type of activities that will go on, but that's what we're trying to do. So we'll create a smart city within our city, and there will be nothing like it that we have in Memphis. And hopefully, it's going to be a great attractor for new companies and technology-driven companies to be a part of it.
So when it comes to stereotypes for tech offices, a lot of things come to mind: ping pong tables, dog-friendly offices, boutique coffee shops, and other, I've refused to believe that tech companies are just looking for ways to throw away money, but these are actually a return on investment. So how do those otherwise expensive resource amenity-rich offices actually drive innovation, especially in the tech sector?
Well, creators, you can't have a lot of pressure on people from the surroundings and environment. So this live, work, play kind of atmosphere, I think, is going to be very energized. We will, from a financial standpoint, we understand that startups cannot afford office buildings like this. By the way, we hope that the office building is going to actually be made out of timbers. It's not going to be a steel and concrete structure. So There's an example of this that's actually going up in Nashville right now. It's called the 1030 Music Row building, if any of you want to look it up. But we hope that that is going to be a lot of the factors from the financial side that we'll make available through other supporters that we have coming in larger corporate tenants. But yes, it's going to have all the cool stuff like you're talking about that we hope.
So a lot of cities are known for specifically agglomerating a lot of very specific types of industries like software in San Francisco, financial stuff in New York City, lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and obviously Memphis, we're known for logistics and healthcare. So what is the benefit of concentrating or agglomerating a lot of industries in one specific city, or even more specifically this project, one specific building or section of the city?
Well, hopefully it's going to be a combination, like you said. Logistics is a big part of our city, as we know. Healthcare is too, because of what we have right in the proximity. Robotics is going to be more of it with FedEx, really focusing on that. Agriculture tech is a big deal here. So we think that there's going to be the opportunity for these young and bright folks that are going to be able to create new platforms of connectivity of this, hotbed of data that can be available to the civic sector, but also to the private sector. So, you have those best practices within that technology platforms. It has a lot of pollination that it can do through different industries. And don't forget music and food. That'll be a part of it too.
So when people think about tech, or at least we're referring to how my brokerage account thinks of tech, it varies widely from software to electric vehicles, which, as you mentioned out, electric vehicles are obviously going to be, for better or for worse, a future part of the Memphis economy, big time moving forward. Now, obviously, most of that construction is going to be and development will be happening a little short trip up Highway 40, towards Jackson. However, anytime there's an investment of that nature, there's always a bunch of hopeful suppliers and support services that also immediately follow them, trying to get their hands in on the action and support the work of Ford. So is there anything you are doing specifically with this project or other developments you have specifically to cater to some of the needs of those adjacent industries?
No, it's we'll have the 5G, we'll have all the data that is collected and community available, but no, I wouldn't say it would be specific to any one industry. Hopefully, there's going to be a good sharing of information because that's where the ideas are created and applied. So no, there's nothing that's specific to anyone. No.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll go ahead and move on to our next panelist. So Milton, you are now in the hot seat.
Hello.
All right, so you're talking about travel and obviously work in that industry. So one of the things that will be driving especially Memphis business travel is our newly renovated convention center. A lot of public money was put into that, and now there seems like there's new hotels popping up left and right. So the private sector seems to think it was a great idea too. So what makes Memphis specifically a great place to be hosting conventions, national sales meetings, and other large-scale corporate events?
Yeah. Well, I can say there's so much I can say on this subject. It could take several panels and webinars. First I say, if you guys have not been to the Renaissance Convention Center, please subscribe to attend the next event that's taking place there that's open to the public, and make sure you take up on the opportunity to attend what's happening in that building or go by and see it. It's absolutely amazing, and the transformation is truly looks like a completely different building than what it once was. Memphis attracts tourists, tourists for leisure travel and conventions in very similar ways. Number one, people want to go to places that are unique and that have a culture to themselves. And Memphis is very authentically ourselves. So when it comes to selling Memphis, attracting, whether it's leisure or convention, it's very easy. We have a huge music history that is told through every piece of tourism business, whether that's a convention or whether that's just a leisure visitor. From our culture, our food, and all of our great historic attractions like the National Civil Rights Museum and Bill Street and Graceland, things like that. And so you have this whole sense of when people are looking for a destination travel for meetings, it's not just about can my meeting space fit in the convention center, and how many hotels are in proximity of the convention center, but it's also what is the experience of the destination. And so, for one, we are also one of the most affordable destinations in the country to visit. So that has a lot. There's a pretty much when you compare us to other destinations, there's a lower cost per attendee rate that meeting planners think about when they come to Memphis that they love. There's also, Memphis is very centrally located. So we are basically easily 6 to 8 hours drive to about 85% of the US population. And so that attracts people here. So there are things from, the new convention center is one of those needed things that you have to have. And that I'm so glad that we now have, because, when I was a sales manager there at the convention center before I came to our main office at 47 Union, where Memphis Tourism is located, one of the things that I had difficulty was selling that building was that it was so old and outdated. And then if I was able to get the meeting planner to love the building and use it, then it was okay. Well, and then I was struck with, okay, how many hotels are in vicinity and those types of things. So now we don't necessarily have, we've improved in that area with the new convention center and new hotels. And now it drastically correlates and complements the already existing experience that we have for tourists when they come.
Wonderful. So to put on my old man yells at clouds hat for a second, there are a lot of people who think that Memphis should be for, well, Memphians and not simply cater to the outside needs of travelers and visitors. How does a lot of the, I'd say, tourism infrastructure, which specifically things like hotels, food, and entertainment, benefit locals and local businesses the rest of the year?
Yeah. Well, I can start off with the typical punchline is, oh, it creates jobs, which it does, but before the pandemic, we were around about over 49,000 people were employed in the hospitality industry. And so there's that immediate impact from the jobs and the revenue that it brings to the city of Memphis. Memphis Tourism, before the pandemic, was generating economic impact over $3 billion a year. We were attracting, on average, close to 1 million visitors per month. And so there's drastically an immediate economic impact. You got to think about them catching a plane, them catching an Uber, then they're eating, then they're going to attraction, and then they're shopping, and then all the things that adds up. So there's an immediate economic impact there that benefits the city of Memphis. But there's also, that long-term, impact of what, and I think I'm answering your economic question in all of this. Sorry there, but going back to the benefits that it brings to locals is now we have a tourism industry that I feel is increasingly becoming more open to being inclusive of the local communities. For instance, we all go to Central Station. It's a hotel lobby that is absolutely amazing that I go to, and it's a perfect place to mix and mingle with locals as well as tourists. I think of the Arrive Hotel, who's just opened, during right before the pandemic, where during the pandemic, I actually would go in there and have coffee and sit. And so you have places like that. I think of the Canopy Hotel that opened, that has the curfew restaurant. So I can go on and on all these different things from the breweries that we have, so all of these things create revenue and impact for the city of Memphis, but they also create an experience for locals. And so if the locals are happy, if the locals are able to have a fun experience and enjoy and love their city, then that automatically means that visitors will be able to partake in that same experience. So tourism is definitely more than just something that just benefits tourists. If we do it right, it must complement the locals.
Full cosign there. So one of the things you just casually mentioned in your bio was you helped Time Magazine name Memphis one of the top places of 2021. Can you walk us behind how exactly that happened and how you sell the city of Memphis to the national news media?
Yeah, so that is the bulk of my work. And most people, when they see the taglines that Memphis made these accolades, and that is usually months or years worth of work and relationships that our PR team has built to get that, to bring about that awareness internationally for Memphis. So, I'll start by, we have, representation in Europe and Australia. And so if you start looking at those destinations, you're going to easily see media coverage in those areas, but particularly and so to give to those people who I think some people just think we just magically make things happen, but typically that particular story happened in 2019. And I'm so lucky that Memphis Tourism has the ability, PR-wise, to go out and do outreach in these markets and meet journalists face to face and put Memphis in front of them. So in 2019, we were doing a concert series where we took several local artists into several of our key destinations where we were getting tourists from. And we were able to put Memphis on a little intimate performance in these destinations, bringing out key influencers and writers and tour operators and things like that, and connecting them with Memphis and telling our authentic story and using music to tell that story. So anyway, I had one journalist who could not, in Los Angeles, who could not make that appointment. And so I said, well, you can't come to our event, but maybe I can take you to dinner the night before. And so I took her to dinner, and Jane, our music specialist, was actually with me as well. And so we took her to dinner, and, I saw, I look up their credentials and I see all these great places she writes for us. So, I come with, and I sell Memphis I'm very casual. I'm not the PR person that comes in there with a checklist and that's trying to jam some facts down your throat, because nobody wants to do that, right? It's a fun experience. So I get to know them, and I casually drop tidbits about Memphis as I see fit in our dinner conversation, and they get to know me and they get to know the things about Memphis, and it becomes an organic conversation and a friendship. And so when COVID, so that was summer of 2019, COVID hit, there was no longer any media stories that were really printed about travel. And so we pivoted PR-wise to really tell some heartfelt stories and kind of pivoted a little bit to keep Memphis in the minds of tourists in a different way, and instead of travel. But anyway, so we, in the midst of kind of changing my outreach, I sent Jenny just a check-in email. How are you surviving COVID? And just checking in. I was no longer just pitching Memphis. I was really just trying to maintain the relationships that Memphis Tourism has built with these journalists across the globe. And so fast forward, she said, we caught up, and then she says, well, I think it looks like the world might open up in spring of 2021. Maybe we can, I can travel to Memphis then and check out something. I said, great, let's stay in touch. So, I follow up. And a couple months later, we're talking about two other stories and that about Memphis. I told her about the new Hyatt Centric, and I told her about Central Station, and I had mentioned all these things and provided her facts. And she was like, I got a confirmed placement, Milton, in New York Lifestyle magazine. I think I can get that. Can you get me to Memphis to experience this? I loved our conversation in 2019. I love our emails and updates in between. So anyway, long story short, while on the phone with her, she let it slip that she was pitching another city for the time slot. And I said, well, Jenny, I just gave you all this information. She's like, you're right. Memphis deserves this accolade. You're right. After, Memphis is everything that you've presented. And so I essentially stayed up. It was like Easter weekend this year, and sending her tons of information for her to make the pitch. I had to send some supporting information and data and things. And then and she sent me an email a week later saying, you're confirmed for the Times placement. I need to get to Memphis to kind of verify the experience you've sold. And that's essentially how it came about. And that's essentially how multiple stories come about throughout the year. It's essentially building those relationships and connections and putting Memphis in front of them. I know I told a long story, y'all. I'm sorry.
We're all yours today, Milton. So you also have your own networking organization and work in an industry, tourism, that people, there we say, have some strong opinions on. What is the question you are most tired of getting asked about at these events? And if you could just nip that one in the bud for all eternity for everyone on this call, how would you answer it?
I don't have a question. I guess I just kind of have a general statement. I think locals must always be conscious about how we interact with people who are not from Memphis in our own experiences, and making sure that we are truthful, and that when you meet a tourist, that you are also, because most of the time we do that well. That's one thing that many of the tourists tell us that they like, is that they love the hospitality. But sometimes when we're trying to make people comfortable, we tell them stories, whether about safety and things of that nature, that sometimes can be exaggerated a bit. We do have, an issue here with crime. I was trying not to use that word, but we do have an issue with crime here, but that does not take away from the great city that Memphis is. So my statement is to locals is don't let that be your intro. When you have guests to your house at home, we clean up and we make sure that they have an awesome time, right? And we like to do that for our tourists as well. So I think we've got to understand that Memphis is just like our crime issue is not it's just some Memphis problem. There's problems across the country. And I think we have to make sure that when we are meeting visitors, that we are making sure they're welcome and giving them factual information about their experience and not something that, that is likely not going to happen to the 12 million people that visit here for tourism.
Hey, Milton.
Yes.
Milton, will you share your calendar with me? I'd like to take you everywhere I go.
I sure can. You can find me at 47 Union all the time.
Okay.
Thank you for answering those, Milton. We'll now move on to Elizabeth for our third and final panelist today. If you guys have Q&A questions you'd like to see answered, please don't be shy, drop them in the chat. Elizabeth, it's now your turn in the hot seat.
All right.
So many of us have at least a surface level interaction with Memphis brand or y'all's Instagram and email page of @WeAreMemphis. For those of us who may not be as familiar, can you briefly give us the pitch of what was the rollout and detail any pivots you may have made for those of us who are a little bit more familiar?
Sure. So Memphis brand is about 5 years old. I started working with the team in the role I'm in now about 1.5 years ago. And the mission of Memphis brand is to create catalytic positive change for all Memphians. So I would say that mission has not changed. That ethos has not changed from day one. How we do it and how we look to make impact, of course, we're evolving all the time. So, a great example of that, we're constantly thinking about two different audiences, Memphians and the folks outside of our city that we're trying to influence. And twice a year, we run panel studies where we're looking at how successful we've been in either shifting their opinion or, in the case of out-of-towners, something that I think it's important for Memphians to realize is that the vast majority of people outside of our city are neutral on Memphis. They have no opinion. They don't know enough about it. They're curious to know more. That's one of the top sort of words associated with the city. So when it comes to our out-of-towners, we've really been spending the past 5 years working on educating them about what is Memphis and why would it be a great place to live. Specifically looking at our sort of millennial and Gen Z now, talent, diverse talent that we want to move here. We want to make sure that they know about Memphis, that we exist and why we're a great place to live. And of course, inside of Memphis, working on improving our own perception, our own sort of feelings about our city. And we have seen that work. We've seen it work over the past 5 years. We see that within about 2.5 years of our work, the word soulful surpassed the word dangerous as the #1 descriptor that Memphians use to describe their city. And there's lots of other sort of, connected attributes that I could share, but that's the one that we really look to and say, more people now describe Memphis as a city with soul than describe Memphis as a dangerous place to live. And more people now say that Memphis is or is becoming a great place to live. So I highlight that to say that as we start to see wins in some of those categories, we obviously want to continue to work that got us there, but then it's important to think about how do we really then graduate to the next phase. And for us, that is really hyper-focusing on talent recruitment and doing it through smart digital work that reaches into key categories. For example, to keep building on the music conversation, we have a sort of music talent funnel where we're really looking to identify artists or folks working in industry in other cities and educate them on why they should move to Memphis or, do music business here in Memphis. And so there are other examples of that where we're really building out and executing now a digital strategy that prioritizes identifying talent and aggressively attracting them to Memphis.
So what has been the most successful sales pitch items in your attempts to recruit talent and companies to Memphis? What's shifted the needle?
I think it's really just educating folks about what's already here, right? It's sort of, again, thinking about the reality that most folks that do not live in Memphis simply just don't know much about the city. They may know that it exists, but they don't have a lot of knowledge beyond that. So I think that just kind of pointing out the assets that exist here is really huge. And as to Milton's point, we have it all, right? We have this incredible culture. We have a great music scene. We have a great food scene. And those are assets that talent, we as individuals, we want those things in anywhere that we live. Any one of us wants those amenities. And so, making it clear that Memphis is a great place from a, sort of after 5 p.m., Memphis is a great place to live. That obviously can be a key factor for folks that are looking to, employers or businesses that are looking to move here too.
So generational divides are arbitrary and, in my opinion, invented by sociologists to keep themselves employed, but we're going to pretend for a minute that they're not. So Gen Z is the most recent, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed college graduates, and it is millennials who are now starting to get old, pay off their student loans, buy homes, and move into middle management. Are you seeing any differences in perceptions and things that draw them to Memphis between the two generations?
Absolutely. I think that, for one thing, I think is in the digital marketing space, you do have to be aware of the subtle changes in how folks consume media and where they live online. And certainly I would say that's a space where there's a bigger difference between Gen Z and millennials, and we have to be thoughtful about how we target them with messages. But the real thing to me that is the big difference, and it's not to say that the things I'm about to mention are not valued by millennials, they are, but we're seeing data that really shows a significant shift for Gen Z in prioritizing multicultural cities. They want to live in a place where people do not all look like them, do not all have the same background as them, where there is significant diversity around them all the time. And obviously we have that in Memphis. We're an incredibly diverse city. And so we're seeing not just that Gen Z is saying that's something that I appreciate, that's a value that I appreciate. They are actually saying that is a high level factor for me in influencing where I will want to move and choose to build my life, is that I want to be in a place that has cultural diversity. And again, where folks are not all like me or from my same background. So I think that recognizing that, we just have a tremendous opportunity in Memphis to continue to just promote, again, the assets that we already have, who we are as a city, and speak to that. I think something that's been important for us at Memphis Brand along the way is we don't shy away from some of our city's warts. And I think, to Milton's point, which is important, every city has them. But I think the difference in Memphis and what we really do try to elevate is for every problem that you might come across, there is a young person who is doing something to try to change it or make it better. And that is not hyperbole. It is really incredible to see that, over and over again, you will see this happen, and I think that is something that is going to attract our Gen Z folks. It's not, it's not us sort of shying away and saying everything's perfect here. It's not. We're like, hey, here are the challenges that we face, but look at all of these people who are working to make a difference. And in doing so, really offering up solutions that could work for cities across the US, right? Creating a national example. And I think that type of activism, that type of entrepreneurial spirit and investment in our community is really attractive to Gen Z writ large.
Awesome. So we focused a lot on specific things regarding individuals' desires to relocate to Memphis. Is there anything different or interesting you're finding about talking to more corporate entities and companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's less fun to talk about because pretty much at the end of the day, the company is going to move here. They need to know that the talent base exists for them to hire from, and that they need to know that whatever type of job that they're offering, whether it's a skilled labor job or if it's an office job working in marketing or comms or finance, they need to know that those professionals with the skills that they need exist in the marketplace. And that's not a challenge that gets solved in a short period of time. I do think that, again, what life is like after 5 o'clock is a swaying factor, certainly. You want to be able to attract people to work for your company in the long term because you're in a great city. But at the end of the day, we have to have the talent here to fill the jobs in order to truly be compelling and attractive to national companies.
So a lot of times when we talk about attracting talent, our mind immediately goes to high performing tech companies and other, sort of high performing technical specialized white collar jobs. One of your specific passions is the music industry. And as mentioned earlier, you have your own nonprofit, Memphis Music Export, specifically catering to that. So two of your core beliefs of that are music makes cities better and musicians choose to live in cities where there are opportunities for them professionally. Can you expound upon that and talk about why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that hopefully everyone on this call is pretty much already sold on the first idea that music makes cities better, right? We all have a desire and an expectation that there are musicians who live in our community, and that means that those musicians play at bars and venues in our neighborhoods, but it also means that they perform at our, street festivals, that they educate our children on how to play instruments, that they are really a part of the fabric of our community. Music makes our city better. And I think particularly in Memphis, it is truly in our DNA. It is the central part of who we are. I think the second piece is what is often a light bulb moment for a lot of folks that I talk to. Just like any of us, a musician wants to live in a city that contains opportunity for them. We all want opportunity. And musicians now, because of, and this has been true for a while, but because of the internet, because of independent distribution, because of a lot of changes in the way that the industry works, they can live anywhere. They can reach their fan base effectively from anywhere. And so they have choice. And I think that puts cities in a competitive place to say, what can we do to create opportunity here that makes musicians want to live here? And I think the sort of icing, or the final thing I'll mention there to kind of wrap it all up, is that while you can live anywhere now and you have that choice as a musician, in 2021, I would say it is harder than it has ever been to make a living as a musician. And again, that's a whole nother Zoom, whole other webinar for another day, but it's very difficult. And what I believe is that we have to shift the way that we think about musicians. Going back to that first point, we want them in our communities. We value them in our cities. So we have to stop sort of leaving them to, fare as they will in the hands of capitalism. And we have to recognize there's a middle ground between industry and philanthropy. And that's what Music Export Memphis does. We subsidize working musicians. We provide tour grants. We provide merch fund grants that they spend with local businesses. We subsidize those who are working to make a middle-class living. And again, I always say that's what we all want, and then I realize that a lot of people want more than that, but we all want at least that, right? To make a living doing what we love. So
I always love hearing people talk about things they're super passionate about. That will conclude the questions we have that are prepared for all our panelists, which means we'll move into Q&A. So if you have something that you think of, or even the panelist says something, Rev's another answer for you, please go ahead. Don't be shy. Drop it in the chat. So first question we have is from Scott Kirk. It is, I think, specifically to Kevin. So you talked earlier about smart cities and some of the specific things. So can you give us like more specifics of, you mentioned data collection, 5G. What are some of like more unique technological advancements going into the smart city aspect of this project? Just give us a little bit more detail, please.
Sure. Before I do that, though, I just want to thank Elizabeth and Milton. Those two folks right there are high energy. They have the answers that I need to be able to go out and tell the story. It's tremendous to hear you guys talk and how enthused you are about that. Yes, we need homegrown talent, but we got to also, because we're trying to get the companies here today, we have to have the attractors that are going to be able to recruit people to move here that start families, and that we start that process. So, it's a dichotomy that is it's not an easy one, but we have to hit all those cylinders at the same time. But to answer the question Ryan asked, if you're talking specific about the platforms, from the let's just call it the concierge services, to the security, to the traffic control, to the touchless doors, to the ionics of the air supply. Those are all things that are part of that technology. But where I think it's really going to come to is that you're going to collect all this data from different sensors. If it's trash removal, to cars coming in, leaving, where they're coming from, and so forth, with geofencing, that you got to share that information with other folks, because they will then see something that you don't see or I don't see, but I see something they don't see. So it's a collaboration of those technologies and sensors of information that I think will create new platforms of these new high-tech, innovative companies, and hopefully a lot of Black tech and innovative companies that come. So music is a big part of that. I don't know if that answered the question, but.
If Sky, if you don't think so, go ahead, tell Kevin in the chat. So open question, this wasn't really addressed to anyone in particular. If you could snap your fingers and make one thing in Memphis change to make your job or life easier, what would it be? And slightly unrelated, but Elizabeth, if you have access to your TED Talk, we have a request for it in the chat. So if you could just drop the link there, it'd be much appreciated.
The link is in there now. And I can answer the question too. I definitely know what I would snap my fingers and change. And that would be that I would increase collaboration throughout our city. I think that we are still recovering from a long-held scarcity mindset where, a piece of pie for you means no pie for me, instead of growing the pie and getting more pie for everyone. And I think that, we're always ranked as like the most generous city. And a part of that ranking is simply that we have the most nonprofits per capita, which, depending on how you look at that, is not necessarily a good thing. We have a lot of folks who have great ideas and have their hands in the same spaces. And I think that if we could all collaborate more across sectors, our city would be better off, and we'd be, always singing from the same hymnal, so to speak.
Agreed.
I agree as well. I have one comment on that. It's more of a PR related. I would say there's a lot of disinformation that happens in the media world that affects not only how people see the world, but how they see the world around them. One example is there was an incident on Facebook, like on one of my Facebook pages, that people were constantly complaining about the airport and the condition that it was in. Hundreds of individuals on this one post, none of them knew about that the renovations that are due to the renovation near completion. They're still thinking and complaining that something needs to be done. I'm like, how is it that all these individuals do not know this is happening and it's been in the news? So that's things I think of that it's just, if I could snap my fingers, it would be disinformation, and that people actually took time to understand the media and not be so against it.
Another open question. So when people think of Memphis and opportunities, a lot of times that's concentrated either downtown, midtown, or along the Poplar Corridor. What else do you think needs to happen to have development and that attraction occur in other parts of town?
Well, we don't have a problem in East Memphis. Where we need to have focus is on the south and north sides of Memphis. And I think the way to get there is it's going to take collaborations again, just like Elizabeth said, of locals. That's one thing, kind of top secret, I've been working on, trying to bring some folks together where we can make those things happen. We don't need gentrification. We don't need people coming in, buying up all these houses and raising the rents where they can't afford them. That's not the answer, and it's only locals that are going to make a difference in that. So you all need to know that there are some folks that are working on that at a very high level right now that I think are that love Memphis, that I think that they will make a difference.
Yeah, I would fully, wholeheartedly second that, Kevin, and would build to say that my first thought when I heard the question was, I disagree. I don't think we need to do anything farther east. We spent many years annexing and growing our city to the point that our city services are stretched. You know, we really need to think about our core. And if we're going to think about areas that need more opportunity, yes, 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 to what Kevin said, South and North Memphis, you know, is where we need to be thinking. And I think the more we can grow population and density in the core of our city, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah, that's not much I can say behind those two. Kevin and Elizabeth pretty much have, I would completely agree. Immediately when he said the South, I immediately thought of, I grew up in Whitehaven community, which is, you know, part of the region of South Memphis. It's south of South Memphis. And so to be correct, but, you know, I got my start at that corner in tourism 15 years ago at the corner of Elvis Presley and Brooks Road. And I've been patiently waiting for a very long time for more development in that area. And there's so much opportunity. You know, that's one of our largest middle class Black communities in the city of Memphis. And there is revenue that those individuals, there's money that those individuals can spend that instead of going to South Haven, quite frankly, for their shopping needs and things like that. So that is one area that I feel needs to have some investment, and some areas that that I'm hoping that our city does and help Black people own some of that investment.
Thank you for your answers. So question from Stephanie Smith. She came for postdoctoral training at St. Jude and then converted into a different field while she was there. I think it's more for Elizabeth, but have you decided or thought about perhaps changing some of the marketing perspective as far as towards retaining talent or conversion of the existing talent pool to the talent pool of the future?
Sure. I mean, I think converting the existing talent pool to the talent pool of the future is probably that is certainly something that the chamber is thinking about every day, I know, and less kind of our lane. But yes, I mean, retention is also a huge thing that we think about. You know, I think and there are a lot of organizations that are thinking about retention. City Leadership, AKA Choose 901, is another great one that is doing work on retention. And I think, you know, certainly all of our social platforms, We Are Memphis, Memphis.com, all of that is really aimed at, you know, really educating our locals on why Memphis is a great place to live. And I think we see ourselves in more broadly offline as more of a convener. You know, we will come and sponsor an event like the Soulsville Festival, which is an awesome event that just happened last weekend. That is a reason you should love living in Memphis, right? So we want to just be that sort of little catalytic force that comes in and supports the folks that are doing the work to make Memphis a great place to live. I think is where we see our play in retention.
You know, one thing I love about Memphis is it's about unity in so many fronts. And I think if we just get some of the old school ways out of the way, it is going to be amazing what could be accomplished here.
And speaking of retention and experiences, something that we're doing, Memphis Tourism is hosting next Friday. I see our VP of Marketing is in the room, and I'm gonna make sure I mention the event that Leah Gaffney's worked so hard on. We are partnering next Friday with the Downtown Commission and hosting Music on Main Street will take place on Trolley Night. So there's going to be Southern Avenue, Al Capone, and several others. A free concert, everyone, on Trolley Night on Main Street. So come out and support that. And it is those experiences that make people fall in love with Memphis and stay here.
Amen. Milton, I gave you a shout out on my show on WYXR on Tuesday. I played North Mississippi All-Stars, and I said, you got to go see them on the 29th. Music on Main.
The 29th, everybody. Not this Friday, but the next.
I'll be there for Southern Avenue. Love them so much. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so that'll conclude this portion for the time being. Thank you, panelists, for spending your time with us and letting us know more about what you're doing and, you know, giving us some more hope for the future and present of Memphis. So to everyone else here, I'll repeat the announcements I had at the beginning, just in case you weren't there for them. But our next event we'll be having will be November 3rd, which will be partnering with the New Memphis Institute for their face-to-face event, discussing career paths with potential college students, letting them know what bright futures they have ahead of them. We also will be having an upcoming professional development workshop. Details are still being in the works, but we look on the lookout for more information on that in the immediate future. We're also currently, again, accepting board applications if you have an interest in shaping the future of YPC and helping pick wonderful speakers like the ones we had today, especially if you have interest in marketing or membership specifically. Those of you who are joining our chat who are not yet members, we'd love to change that. Jessica has put a link to our application in the chat above. Membership is $100 a year, gives you access to all of our events. I promise your employer would love to cover that fee for you, and we have discounted memberships available for people who are members of the Chairman's Circle. Again, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation and gotten to learn more about the city of Memphis. Hope to see you all at our future events. Thank you.